Hi, and welcome to this new series about prompt engineering. Before we get started, let's define what prompt engineering is. Models like GPT-3, 3.5, and 4 are all prompt-based. And with prompt-based models, the user interacts with the model by entering text prompts, to which the model responds with text completions. While these models are extremely powerful, their behavior is also very sensitive to the prompts. This makes prompt construction a really important skill to develop. Prompt construction can be difficult. In practice, the prompts act as a way to configure the model's weights to complete the desired task, but it's more of an art than a science, often requiring experience and intuition to craft a successful prompt. And that's what we're going to learn throughout this series. So you can think of prompts as a way for ultimately you telling the bot or GPT, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say? So in this example, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the cat sat on the? You're probably going to say mat. And that's what it would say as well. But if I were to say happy, it might think of birthday, it might think of holidays, it might think of different alternatives because there is different options that come after happy. Let's see that in action. The way we're going to see this in action is I'm going to open the OpenAI playground, and this is a means or a way to try out different prompts. You can access it by going to platform.openai.com/playground and just sign up. There's a few things you need to understand when playing with the playground here. There are two modes, which we're going to talk about later, and there is the temperature here, which if 0 will become the most accurate result, whereas 1 will be really a generic or more creative result. I'm going to set it as 0 first so that we can go through the ideas and we can really see how we can leverage that. So I'm going to say here, the cat sat on the, and before I actually start, I'm going to say to show probabilities, and this will show me what it thought of. So you'll see here, 77%, it was 77% most likely to be mat, 16% floor, and so on. Whereas if I were to write happy and do the same thing, it says birthday, which is correct, but it's only 9.55% sure that it should be birthday. And because it has New Year, it has holidays, it has different options there. And that's really how it thinks about it. Now, continuing, we have two different prompt components that we've seen a quick glance about here, but they're really the ability to either complete or chat. Complete, you only have one box where you write your prompt, whereas chat is a little bit more detailed because you have this ability to have a conversation. And this is how ChatGPT works ultimately, is that there's this user-assistant conversation where the user writes something, the assistant writes something, but all this is being tracked so that you can refer to the history of the conversation. And let me give you an example of that what that really means. So if I were to start a new chat and say I want to use, let's say, GPT 3.5, I can easily say something like, how old is Sam Altman? And it's going to tell me how old Sam Altman is. And then I can say, what does he do? And it was able to recognize that I'm referring to Sam Altman because it has that full conversation here. Okay, continuing on from where we left off, we have also something called zero-shot and few-shot learning. The idea of zero-shot learning is you don't really give it any guidance. You just give it something and let it continue, and it will continue by making up the rest of that completion. So something like, coach confident injury won't derail Warriors, and it comes up with all this content. Whereas with few-shot, I give it some examples like so to help it realize what I want as an outcome. So here I say that the headline is Twins Korea to use opt-out test-free agency, and the topic is baseball. Qatar World Cup to have zones for sobering up. topic is soccer. So it automatically assumes that when I say coach confident injury won't derail Warriors, I'm referring to basketball. Now, there are so many different prompt types, and every day people are innovating new prompt types. But there are 4 key prompt types that we need to understand because everything is based upon them. These are instructions, primary content, cues, supporting content. Let's get started by seeing the first one. Instructions are really what we use most of the time. It's giving it a guidance or an instruction that we want from it. So again, going back to ChatGPT here, I might have an instruction to say, translate to French, for instance. So if I say, translate to French, hello, what's your name? It would answer, bonjour, and so on. They can be a little bit more complex as well. Instructions can be something like, write an instruction for a weekly newsletter. And it starts doing that. But that is very generic. What if I want to make it more personal? I can start giving it more complex instructions like my company's name Contoso and so on and so forth. So it becomes a little bit more specific here. I can make it even more specific by giving it bullet points on exactly what the talking points or the outline for what I want it to write. And these are really important because, again, the more you give it, the more it will give you back. So let's continue. And this is really what we call instruction, where I give it just text and let it write. However, that translate, I had to give it other content other than my instruction, right? And in this case, it's not called instructions based. What this is another prompt type. This other prompt type is called primary content, where I give it some primary content and let it do that instruction on it. So in our example that we just saw, it was translate to French. Another one that's very common is that I can go and say something like, I gave it this huge article from Wikipedia about Egypt and tell it summarize the previous text in a few sentences. What it's going to do is it's going to summarize that in just one paragraph. I can do the same thing in a different way by just saying TLDR, which for most people from Reddit and from social media know it's too long, didn't read. And that will make it understand that I want to also make it a shorter paragraph. Now, this is really good, and these are great examples of how to give it that sense to summarize things, right? And that primary content. And you'll see a lot of examples. If you click on examples from here in that platform.openai, you'll see other examples like summarize for a second grader, and you give it the same content, but you give it summarize this for a second grade student. Okay, so now we've seen instruction and primary content. The next one we want to see is what we call cues. And the idea of cues is instead of just giving it your ask, your instruction, you can give it a little bit more than that. So let's first say 0 cue, which is what we've been doing, where we don't give it any cues. So I just gave it the same text about Egypt, and I said summarize the above text. Again, as we'd expect, it just gave us a paragraph summary. But what if I gave it a little bit more insight? So instead of just summarize the above text, I gave it the key takeaway of this text is. So I'm guiding it to what I'm looking for in that paragraph, which is what is the key takeaway ultimately. I can give it 2 cues. So in this example, I'll give it a cue that's key points and another cue that's a bullet, which means that I want my result as bullet points here. So you'll see here, it was able to summarize it and use that key points and create it in bullet points. And this is how we use cues to help guide our answers ultimately. The fourth and final one we're going to see for today is supporting content. Now, supporting content is another way to, again, get a more granular result. So if I were to write the same text and then say summarize the above group by topic, it's going to think of and come up with the topics itself. So it wrote geography, history and culture, modern Egypt as topics. These might not be the most important topics for me. So I can say something like, my important topics are culture, geography, and history, for instance, and let summarize based on these. So you see here culture, geography, and history. And this is really, really important because we can then start guiding it to summarize based on specific prompts that the user has. So you can think of having a large text piece like this, and instead of saying summarize, I can say answer a specific question. And this is how we use this model or this prompt type of supporting content to guide it to exactly what we want as answers. Now, there are a few best practices that generally we need to understand when creating prompts. One is be specific. Be as specific and as detailed as possible in your request or in your instruction or in your ask. Be descriptive. Double down, which usually means that you need to write over and over your instruction. You can write your instruction before your supporting content or before your primary content and after. Order matters. You need to try out different orders whether putting your instruction first and then your text or your text and then the instruction, the result can be different. And finally, give them all an out. What we mean by that is instead of just letting it hallucinate and come up with something, even if it doesn't know the answer, you can tell it, if the answer is not within this content, say I don't know. So it doesn't hallucinate, or it tries not to hallucinate and say I don't know. So thank you for watching this video, and this is just the start of what prompt engineering is all about. I hope you found it useful. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video, give it a thumbs up if you do like it. Before I jump out, I want to show you a few of the resources I used for this video. The first one, of course, is these examples in OpenAI that I mentioned. The second one is this document or this article from Microsoft that talks about Introduction to Prompt Engineering, which you can check out. It's what we went through today. And next video, we're going to look at how we can further drill down into prompt engineering best practices and how can we really hone down on how we engineer our prompts. Thank you for watching.